So I don't know about you guys, but before I go to bed every night, I always pop in and listen to the news, figure out what's going on in the world, and basically how it's going to affect my life going forward. So this is something I do every day. I'm not sure if you do the same thing, but I was thinking, and bear with me because I have to explain it a little bit. I was thinking about this war in Ukraine and why I think Zelensky is either an idiot or he knows exactly what's happening and he's just going along with it. But I doubt the latter is the case. I really think he's an idiot. Let me break it down to you what exactly is happening. Zelensky made a big mistake in thinking that NATO and the EU was going to come and save him. That's why he didn't follow through on the Minsk agreement. And that's why he thought when Russia came in that he could beg us, the West, to come and shed blood for Ukraine and save Ukraine. But that was never going to happen. That was never the plan. The whole plan was to use Ukraine as a killing field to weaken Russia or for somehow to remove Putin out of power. And then all the Western businessmen could come into Ukraine and Russia and eat up the oil and the gas industries. That was the plan. But none of them expected Russia to be so prepared for this. Russia has been preparing for this scenario for decades, and the West bloodied their own nose into thinking that their geopolitical merry-go-round was still intact and that they could implement this plan by constantly convincing the government in Ukraine to ignore the Minsk agreement. Why Ukraine will never win this war and why the West know that Ukraine will never win this war. Do you remember back last year, February, when Russia went into Ukraine with all their tanks and NATO, they made a promise and they said not one single one of our soldiers will set foot in Ukraine to defend it. To me, in that sense, they had already ceded Ukraine to Russia because there was no way that Ukraine can win this war with Russia. Given our refusal, the West's refusal to fight for Ukraine, or provided with anything beyond enough weapons to defend itself, not enough weapons to win against Russia, not enough weapons to invade or attack Russia, but just to defend itself from Russia, which cannot work. The personality of Zelensky is being elevated by the mainstream media, standing ovations in all the parliaments around the world while his people are suffering, his country is being destroyed. I'm not sure why they keep elevating this man and the way he speaks to us in our parliaments. He has the monopoly on humanity. If we don't help him, we're like the worst things on the planet. I mean, they elevate him in the news, in the mainstream media, as the fighter for freedom around the world and the champion of liberal values and all kind of titles they give this man. But what is really happening? Is that really the case? I mean, while they play games on the mainstream media, Ukraine is being destroyed. Millions of people have left the country, dispersed all over Europe, all over the world, and the country's being destroyed. What is the end game here? What is the end game? Ultimately, Zelensky is calling on the whole world, telling us to basically forget our national interests. So never mind about our rising inflation, never mind about our rising oil and gas prices, never mind about blackouts and homelessness and all our national interests, and focus on Ukraine, because saving Ukraine is saving the security of the whole world. I think this guy is an idiot. Seriously. Somebody have to have the courage and say it to him. Come out with the facts and explain to him that he is an idiot and he's destroying his country. So my final thoughts on this whole thing, and I really hope that Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, would get this. No matter how you twist and turn it, no matter how many weapons you get from the West, no matter what they tell you to say or to do, because I really think that they are directing him what to do. The bottom line is, if Russia's security is threatened, then Ukraine's security is threatened. You can't get around it. You have to sit down with Russia and decide if you're going to implement the Minsk agreement and what is safe for Russia in their eyes and what is safe for Ukraine, aka Europe, in our eyes. You can't get around it. It has to be done. And I hope that the Ukrainian people would wise up and understand that, because ultimately their country is being destroyed because of idiots in the West. The three stooges in the West: the US government, the EU and Ursula, and Zelensky. NATO is not your friend. It isn't. Look what they did to Iraq. Look what they did to Syria. Look what they did to Libya, Yemen, and many others. They come in and they make a mess and they leave it a worse mess than it ever was. And that's exactly what's happening to Ukraine. NATO is not your friend. These are tough days for Zelensky, and you can see it on his face. I mean, he goes into different parliaments around the world asking us or demanding from us, which I think he must be crazy. He must know, and I'm sure he's thinking, that the West has already given up on Ukraine. We are not coming to fight with him. The weapons that they are sending to him are just enough for him to defend himself. I'm wondering if he's thinking right now, had I followed through with the Minsk agreement, that I wouldn't be in a spot that I am in right now. Or if he had just ordered for them to stop the bombing and shelling of the Donbass area and protect those people, if his country would be in such a mess right now. Yeah, all of this is 2020 hindsight. Yes, he had 8 years to implement the Minsk agreement. Yes, he had 8 years to stop the killing field in the east of Ukraine. And he didn't make a move to do it. The West encouraged him not to do it. And now his country is a mess. I think personally that the West, NATO, America, Europe, they all know that Ukraine is lost. And because of the fact that they cannot go and fight in Ukraine, for Ukraine, they know it's a lost country. And they have ceded it to Russia. So I think they want it to be as destroyed and broken economically, agriculturally, as broken as possible. Because yes, if Russia's going to get it, we're going to give it to them as broken as possible. That's what I think is going on. And the sad part is that Zelensky doesn't realize this. He really thinks that the West is with him and fighting to save Ukraine. But that's not the case. The West has abandoned Ukraine a long time ago. The only reason that they are still supporting Ukraine militarily with weapons, defense weapons, is because they don't want to lose face with Russia. They already poured out a big mouth, poured out a big resistance, and already are so much invested in it that they cannot lose face and pull back. They cannot lose face and pull back militarily from helping them. They cannot lose face and pull back from the sanctions that are killing their own citizens, us here in Europe, there in America. We're so incredibly broken all around the world now because of these sanctions. And they refuse to pull back just to save face. And let me finish by saying, no one in the Western press or the Western media or the mainstream media will dare to print this or to speak these truths, what I'm saying right now. Why? They will be put on the list that they are a Putin sympathizer, or they're not speaking politically correct stuff, and you know the whole gamut what goes on in the media. So they don't dare say it, but ultimately Zelensky knows it, and the government, I keep putting between quotations because there was never really a government in Ukraine because it was run by the West, also knows that they are the ones that put themselves in this position, and the ball has just started rolling. I think this guy is an idiot. Seriously. Somebody have to have the courage and say it to him. Come out with the facts and explain to him that he is an idiot and he's destroying his country. Yeah, guys, let me know what you think about my assessment of this, and I would love to connect with you in the comments and hear your thoughts on the matter. And I'll see you again in my next vlog. Cheers.